there'd be a muzzle flash, then the tracer would light, and the tracer would go up for a certain amount of distance. Then it would burn out. Then if the bullet hadn't hit somebody, it would go a short distance and then explode. The fireball, I think, on a 23 miller was about, I think, about 14 feet across. And for 37, it might be about 17 feet across. Since my airplane is about that size, one round hits you and you're blown out of the sky. So it's not like you're being shot by a machine gun where bullets can tear through and you go, oh, that's not nice. One hit and you're down.
So you never get hit before?
I never got hit by an aircraft round in my tours. And I'm passing out things. Here's a copy of my background. So anyway, I got there, and much better. The real heroes of the war and the guys with the toughest fight were the guys with the Marines and the Army guys. And they're the really unsung heroes in pretty much all our wars. As aviators, we had it pretty easy. Da Nang was a big base. They weren't about to overrun us. We had a chow hall, and we even had an officers club where we could eat meals, and you go to kind of like a cafeteria. So it wasn't too bad. It had a bar, and occasionally the USO was kind enough to have visiting shows come through, and performers would do kind of Vegas acts for us. So it was really kind of a pleasant environment. So you'd be on base, and then you'd go fly your mission, and they'd shoot at you, and then you'd come back. And so for us, flying over the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the safe part was coming back to Vietnam, because the dangerous part was flying over there. And when I first got there, we were in an open bay barracks that was an old French barracks. It was 2 stories. We were on the top floor, and it was just rows of beds. I think we had maybe 8 beds on either side, and then we had these big stand-up lockers like you have in the gyms. And then our beds, and then screens. And then at the end of the hall, there was a few shower stalls and the toilets, and that was where we lived. Now, unfortunately, it's humid and hot in Vietnam, and we were both primarily night flyers. So you'd fly in the middle of the night, come back and lay in bed, and then you'd be in 100-degree heat, 80%, well, 90% humidity, trying to sleep during the day, and then it was time to fly again. When I first got there, I met a young lieutenant, and he had been shot down about 2 weeks before. He was in the right seat, and they shot off the tail of the airplane, RO2. The guy in the left seat pushed him out, and the guy in the left seat never made it. So he got out, parachuted down. The other guy just went in. And then my bunkmate right next to me, about my second week there, he got shot down. And they both jumped out, and he was a prior Marine enlisted man, and he was a Tiger. And the rescue teams came in, and he got shot down at a very, very bad place. It was called Delta 45. We had these Delta points. We named the Ho Chi Minh Trail little spots, and we called this spot Delta 45. Incredible number of guns there. They would move the gun pits around, but it was a major transport area where the main trail came down and one of the major roads going to the east. And they had a big supply depot there. And it wasn't uncommon to have 17 or 18 anti-aircraft guns actively firing within a mile across. And that's an incredible amount of fire. The 37 millimeter can put up 2 rounds a second. And the twin 23 can put up 200 rounds a minute. So an incredible amount of gunfire can come up your way. And he was up there, and while he was on the ground, he heard a factory. And so they rescued the major instructor first. The first night, they couldn't get him out, so he said, we'll get the next day. For the night, he heard this factory running. So they went to rescue him, and he said, no, don't rescue me yet. There's a factory. And I says, I've been using my compass. It's over here. And he directed a bunch of airstrikes on the ground and blew up the factory. And evidently some bombs went into this underground factory, and then the whole thing just exploded, and went on for about the whole. It took another hour to rescue him, get him out of there, and it was still exploding the whole time. So this was a major place. For whatever reason, when I went through training, my first few missions, I rarely got shot at. I mean, I didn't even get to see ground fire, and I was going, what is it? It's nice to be Irish and lucky, but but why did that shoot at me? And I really had a really great string. I went something like 12 missions and never got shot at in my fighters when I directed airstrikes. Didn't get shot at. So I was considering myself quite lucky. And then one night I flew with an instructor, and we decided we'd go where the activity was, and sure enough, we looked out these perimeter scopes, and there's all these trucks at Delta 45, a huge convoy. Over, we couldn't count exactly, but over 30 trucks. So we called for some airstrikes. We called the command and control and said, send us fighters. We got all these trucks to blow up. And the fire control guy down there, I guess, heard us, and up come the ground fire. And it was the most out of my almost 500 combat missions. It was the most ground fire I ever took in my whole time. It was of anti-aircraft. It was incredible. We were counting. We were supposed to keep track of the rounds, and we just kept scoring them and with our grease pencils and marking them down. It was just phenomenal. Because what was nice about them using tracers is in flying formation airplanes, if an airplane is stationary in your windscreen and stays that way, you're going to collide. You're going to join them. That's actually how you get your formation. You put the other airplane stationary and you join up with them. Well, same thing with ground fire. If the tracers come up and then arch up and they're sitting still, little red dots, you're going to get hit. Well, the little O2 is so tiny, and we're only going 120 miles an hour. I could push it, and they'd go by. And so you would then watch it come up, and so you'd jink. The problem is when the fire control guy saw that, he'd tell this gun, and then this gun, and this gun, and this gun fire. So as you're braking this way, more ground fire's up, so you're just jinking, and the guy in my right seat saying, brake left, and I said, well, I can't quite do that right this minute. And you sit there and just dance and dance, and this went on, and I kept going. I would actually annoyed was after the fact is I don't think they wanted to send any fighters away because they didn't want to have to do a rescue. I mean, it was just, they were a few miles to the south watching this thing in a big C-130 control airplane, and it was a fireworks show. It was the 4th of July. It was just incredible. We did a rough count. We couldn't we lost count. But we think in that 2.5+ hours we were over Delta 45, we took 10,000 rounds of anti-aircraft. I mean, that's an incredible number. I mean, the most other fire I ever took was maybe, at times, maybe 50 rounds. It was a bad night where they were shooting at me. And this was something like 10,000. It just, it got to one point where I was braking and we're saying, back over the trucks, get back off, get back over there again, where there was just so much, because the tracers would burn up and they go up overhead. And it was a no moon night. It was dark out. Just a few little stars. And I looked down at my rudder pedals, and there's my combat boots, and I could see where there's paint chipped off the little islands on my boots. It was like daylight. I could see my boots like it was daytime. There's just so many explosions going on overhead. It was just phenomenal. And so we finally didn't get any airstrikes, and so our fuel was used up, and it was our turn to go home, and we headed home, and the instructor said, I'm going home. I've been here 11.5 months. I've never seen anything like that before. He says, that was incredible. But what they missed, and it sure cost them a ton, because they have to haul ammunition out of North Vietnam down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, down to us, or build them at the factory there. And so that was probably more that was my break into ground fire. It was pretty impressive situation.